All right, so today is Wednesday, so we're just having the midweek check-in. We just want to make sure that we're seeing some positive changes, as well as seeing if we need to tweak anything on the therapy program, right? So before we get into the diagnostic tests, how are you feeling? Is there anything that's gotten worse or has remained unchanged?
Last night I didn't sleep at all.
Okay.
So I'm tired today, a little bit more pressure in my head, a little bit more nauseous today than I was yesterday.
Okay. How's your nausea been overall, let's say, compared, when you first got here to today?
Yesterday was okay. Today it's back pretty strong.
Okay.
And rain came in last night.
Okay.
Because there's more pressure in my head today also.
Does the nausea get flared up by any kind of activity, or is it just constantly there and it never gets better or worse?
It seems like the rain and the moon, I can definitely feel more pressure, but activity-wise, not really.
Okay. So that's actually kind of a good sign then, because we're doing a lot of activity here. So to see either a decrease or a level off of all that is actually a pretty good sign, because we're doing a lot of activity and things. So that's actually pretty good. Okay, let's go over the sagidometer here. Now, this is what it first looked like on Monday when you came in. Remember, here we're looking more at frontal lobe function, which is more executive decision-making, personality, impulsivity control. We want all the eye movements here to be around 200 or below. So yours are lightning quick, and that makes sense because you're still intact in terms of frontal lobe function. What we wanted to clear up a little bit was the cerebellar aspect here. So these lines that are falling extremely short is just because you're looking at the spot on the wall before the target pops up. So these are basically like outliers here. But what we wanted to see here is just a little bit more overlapping between the greens and reds, and just some more narrowing to make sure that it's as close to 20 as possible. When we look at it today, this pattern here, it looks big and scary, but basically what this means is that you have a tight neck. The neck muscles will impact eye movements. So as your eyes move, basically your neck muscles are triggered as a result. So this is not a bad thing to see on Wednesday, because we know that we're making changes in the vestibular function. And as we make those changes in your inner ear, it impacts neck muscles, which cause them to be tight, which can impact the eye movements as well. So I expect this would clear up by Friday. If not, then we will do cervical manipulations to get that neck to be less tight in terms of the intrinsic muscles there. But for Wednesday, no concern. It kind of actually means that we're seeing some changes in vestibular function. So we will work on this. I expect it to normalize by Friday. When we're looking here, latencies still look fantastic. Again, you're well below 200, so I think the slowest one you have is around 170, and everything else is lightning quick too. Any questions with this one at all?
No, but my night's probably stiff also. I slept terrible last night. Oh, that would affect this morning.
If your neck was stiff from last night?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be, yeah. It's just when we typically see this waveform here where it goes up and then you kind of see like a little, like two humps pretty much. So it goes up here, then down, then up again, and then down. That's indicative of neck tightness. So again, since we're making changes in the system that directly impacts that, it makes sense that there's going to be some sort of acclimation period. So especially when we see this on Wednesday, it generally means we're moving in the right direction. And then typically by Friday, it'll clear up. The other thing we looked at, and for you in particular with nausea, we really wanted to see an improvement in is the nystagmus that you have. So if you remember, that's when you have the slow eye movements to one side and then a quick eye movement back to the other side, almost like a correction. So this is when we had the cover over your eyes with the goggles. And remember, we were saying here, we want this line to be basically as straight as possible and as flat as possible. That means that your eyes were looking straight ahead, no movement at all or anything like that. What we see here, when you're going up on the graph, it symbolizes moving to the right. So your eyes are drifting to the right a little bit. You have a quick correction, then they drift again. You have a quick correction, then they drift again, quick correction. So that is a left beating nystagmus. Lets us know that that right vestibular system is not working as well as it should, because the right vestibular system will push your eyes to the left one will push your eyes to the right, and if they're at optimal functional levels, then they should just cancel each other out and you should be able to look straight ahead. When you see an eye movement like this, it means one side's losing the battle with the other. So we want to get that working better. And why it's particularly important for you is because something like this can easily create nausea, especially since you have this consistently, anytime your eyes are open, you're fighting this constantly. So we want to see if we can get that to normalize. What it looks like today is relatively flat, so a lot better than it does on Monday. We still see a slight drift to that right, but a lot flatter than it was before, so nowhere near as much drift as we were seeing on Monday. So that's normalizing very well. That's really good to see there. That means that that right vestibular system is more active than it was on Monday as well. The other things that we went over were the optokinetic reflexes. This is where the red and black bars were going across the screen. When you came in on Monday, basically we have this section here of a saw blade or sharp tooth pattern. We want to see this part here uniform and consistent throughout the entire length of the test here. That was when it was going to the left. And when it was going to the right, you didn't really have it too much. The reason why it looks like you're like a jagged edge almost is because you actually are having these things called square wave jerks where your eyes are moving back and forth. And remember, we were seeing that with your tracking as well, especially in the vertical plane. So we want to just see if we can get those to go away. That's what we're trying to work on with the dot exercises on the wall. Looking at today, we see here that you're having the reflex, it's pretty consistent throughout, it's just now elongated here. So it's a step in the right direction, we just need to work on it more to make it more efficient. So then that way we can apply this progress here, but make it more frequent. That way you get that saw blade sharp tooth pattern that we're really looking for. But in the leftward direction, it looks like to be a good improvement there. And then here in the rightward direction, you're starting to see, instead of this square waveform that you see in this one in particular, you're starting to see that it's becoming more of that jagged edge here, more of that saw blade sharp tooth pattern that we're looking for. So again, a good step in the right direction. We're going to increase the intensity of those exercises. It's the one in particular with the stripe counting. So we're going to increase that. So there's a little bit of a priority thing that we need to work on here. So we want these reflexes to come back, but at the same time, we also want to work on the areas that dampen and inhibit excess stimulation, because that's what's going to cause nausea. So we want to still work on things like gaze stability, so like looking at the dot on the wall, but then also watching the target when you're in the mark chair. But we also want to work on these reflexes too. So instead of not having you focus on a target on the mark chair, which would help increase these, but then you lose the gaze stability, we'll do the gaze stability, but we'll increase the frequency of the stripe counting. That way we're able to get kind of the best of both worlds with that. In the vertical plane here, this is what it looked like when it first came in. We just see if there was eyelash irritation with that. Tiny bit with that left eye. So with the right eye, there's just a little bit of cursor irritation with the eyelashes here on the left eye, but the right eye, even so, you really don't have the reflex too much. You get a couple beats here at the end. This is when the stimulation was going downward. So again, we just want to see if we can see this pattern here throughout the entire length of the test. And then this is upward, really not too much movement there to begin with. So let's see what it looks like today. So today, this is going downward. So downward looks better. Still room for improvement with this, but we're seeing this pattern here. We see it here as well, and then here too. So again, just want to make this more uniform and consistent throughout the rest of the week. But again, looking a lot better compared to what it was when we first came in. And then upward looks fantastic compared to what it was before. So before you didn't really have it at all. Now we're seeing that nice pattern that we're looking for throughout the entire duration of the test. So reason why these reflexes are important, not only for nausea, because you need to have this appropriate response when you're in motion, but you also want to have these reflexes because it's really like 4 or 5 different areas of the brain working together. So if we can get these reflexes to come back, it lets us know that those different parts of the brain are communicating more effectively with one another as well. Okay? Any questions with this?
Nope.
Okay, let's shift into the neurological exams. We'll have you take a seat up there.